Hi students, this is Karimunisa Sayed, Associate Professor in Zoology. Welcome back to session 36 under Zoology, Paper 2, Nanka Data, Part 2. In this session, we are going to continue the study of echinoderm larvae, and specifically we are going to study the structure and significance of Ophiopluteus larva and Echinopluteus larva. So as usual, you may wonder why we want to study the structure of this larvae. As we all know, the structure of the larvae also shows very significant adaptation to their habits and habitat. Similarly, it has also got evolutionary significance. Of course, we need to learn this session only after studying the life cycle of sea star or astrials for better understanding. Coming to the Ophiopluteus and Echinopluteus larvae, these two larvae share a similar structure. That's why together they are called Pluteus group of larvae. Then, what is Pluteus group of larvae? This larval forms can be regarded as modification of Auricularia larva of Holothuridae. Why? Because all these larvae are free swimming, pelagic, and they also share common structure. That is, they are all microscopic. They have dorsoventrally flattened body, which is very transparent, and it is bilaterally symmetrical. Like the Auricularia larva, it has also got a single ciliated band, but this Pluteus larvae, they have elongated arms with ciliated bands at the margin. But the Pluteus larvae have comparatively smaller preoral lobe. In the previous session, we have seen the preoral lobes of Auricularia larvae are well developed. The post-anal part of the body is quite well developed here in the Pluteus larva. And not only that, in the Pluteus larva, we come across 5 to 6 pairs of arms supported by calcareous rods and with pigmented tips, and in Echinopluteus larva especially, there are 4 ciliated bands forming epaulets at the base of postoral and posterodorsal arms. So we can identify Pluteus larvae basically because of elongated anteriorly forwarded arms. Then coming to the types of Pluteus larva. So we have 2 types of Pluteus larvae. Under Ophiuridea class, we have Ophiopluteus larva, and in class Echinoidea, we have Echinopluteus larva. Ophiopluteus larva is the only larva of Ophiuridea that resembles Echinopluteus larva of Echinoidea in its general features. Thereby, both of them are considered as Pluteus larvae. So what is the common feature in these two larvae? That is the Ophiopluteus larva and Echinopluteus larva. So these two larvae, as you see here, they have 4 pairs of similar arms. What are they? The post-oral arms, anterolateral arms, posterolateral arms, and posterodorsal arms. So in both the larvae, we have 4 pairs of arms which are similar. Then coming to the structure of Ophiopluteus larva, as we all know, this larva is seen in the life history of Ophiuridia, which is nothing but brittle star. Larvae is also free swimming, pelagic. They have common structures like microscopic flattened body, which is transparent with bilateral symmetry. All these characters are common to all the echinoderm larvae. But apart from that, they have 4 pairs of long arms. So what are these arms? They have anterolateral arms, posterolateral arms, postoral arms, and also posterodorsal arms. And all these 4 pairs of arms are supported by calcareous rods. The arms are directed upwards, and pre-oral loop is reduced, and ciliated band is undivided. The posterolateral arms are very long and they are directed forwards. The digestive system is also well developed. It opens with a mouth at the anterior end and with an anus at the posterior end. We can also see the development of hydrocele with a hydropore and somatocelia. Similarly, we can also study the structure of Echinopluteus larva. As we all know, it is the only larva. Unlike other classes of echinoderms, under the Echinoidea class, the individuals or echinoderms develop only one larva. Whereas in other classes, we have seen 2 to 3 larvae are developed. So thereby, Echinopluteus larva is described as the single larval stage, which we see in the members of class Echinoidea. But this larva also has similar features. That is, it is also microscopic with a transparent bilaterally symmetrical body. This larva is also pelagic, free swimming in the water. But this larva has got a oval body relatively and long paired ciliated bands of the arms, which are developed into arms that are supported by again calcareous skeletal rods, just like the Ophiopluteus larva. So thereby, the fully developed Echinopluteus larva will have 4 to 5 pairs of arms. Usually 6 pairs of arms should be resulted. But here, the pre-oral arm is also present. It is not reduced, unlike the Ophiopluteus larva. But posterolateral arm is absent. You can see it is reduced here. The other 3 arms are anterolateral arms, postoral arms, and posterodorsal arms. But as you see here, the arms are also supported by calcareous rods. So thereby arms are stiff and they are ciliated and they help the animal in active swimming. So these Pluteus larvae are relatively, comparatively more active in terms of locomotion or swimming when compared to the Auricularia group of larvae. So proceeding with the further structure of the echinoderm larvae. In the structure of Echinopluteus larva, the digestive system is well developed, which shows both the openings, that is mouth and anus. And here also the larva develops hydrocele and vestibule. And these parts grow on the oral side of the animal. And as we all know, from the hydrocele, 5 radial canals will develop. That means from the hydrocele, we see the formation of the water vascular system. This larva undergoes rapid metamorphosis and develops into adult. I hope now you are well versed with the structure of Ophiopluteus larva and Echinopluteus larva. And here in the picture, you can see both the larvae, and I hope you will be able to identify them under the microscope. And you can also see the similarities in terms of their arms. Coming to the significance of these larvae. So as usual, the first and foremost importance of this larvae is that, as usual, the adult echinoderms are comparatively sluggish, but their larval forms are very active, actively swimming, pelagic. So thereby, these larvae help the species in the dispersal of the species or the animal across the seas in the globe. Similarly, the larvae remain as planktons for sufficient time to be swept away from the place of their birth to the new areas or to restock the same native place. So they help the animal in the dispersal of the species. In the same manner, because of this highly dispersible nature of the larvae, they also help the animals in the feeding. How do they do that? By being pelagic and drifting away from their native areas, the larvae will aid the species in feeding from a different source, from their adult. That means they lessen or they decrease the competition for the food with their own adults. And this feature is commonly found in the Ternaria larva of Belnoglasses also, because the Ternaria larva of Belnoglasses is also free swimming, planktonic, and usually it will also try to exploit the natural resources of the sea by drifting away from its adult. That means this particular feature of this larvae, echinoderm larvae, resembles the feature of Ternaria larva of Belnoglasses. Coming to the third important significance of Ophiopluteus larva and Echinopluteus larva, both these larvae have same common echinoderm features like free swimming, pelagic, microscopic body, flattened body. It is also transparent with bilateral symmetry. Both the larvae have ciliated loops or bands. They also have similarity with regard to their digestive system or the gut and the origin of coelom, that is enterocolic coelom. Hence, all the echinoderm larvae must have originated from a common ancestor, which was supposed to be coelomate, bilaterally symmetrical, and free swimming. Therefore, it is suggested that Diplurula larva and Pentacula larva are the two such hypothetical common ancestors from which modern or living echinoderms might have originated. Because during the life cycle of some of these echinoderms, we see Diplurula like larva and also Pentacula like larvae. Then coming to the next important significance, that is taxonomic affinity. Structurally, as we have seen, Ophiopluteus larva and Echinopluteus larva show close similarities. That is bilateral symmetry with elongated arms. Hence, both of them, they form Pluteus group of larvae with the other larvae of class Ophiuridia and Echinoidea. So on the basis of larval similarities, we assume that Ophiuridia class is closely related to class Echinoidea, and we must keep these two classes close to each other. But this phylogenetic analysis is not correct, according to Anderson in the year 1998. Why? Because according to the paleontological studies, based on the fossil studies and morphological studies, if you look into the external features of Ophiurids, that is nothing but the Ophiothrix. If you compare the structure of Ophiothrix with the echinoids, that is echinus, that is nothing but sea urchins, there is no resemblance between the external features of adult sea urchins with that of the brittle stars. So thereby, scientists like to follow the paleontological studies and morphological studies instead of larval studies. Thereby, according to paleontological and morphological studies, holothuroids closely resemble echinoids, indicating independent evolution or parallel evolution. We can see some resemblance in the body of sea cucumbers and sea urchins, as both of them, they don't have arms. Though there is a larval resemblance. Adults, there is no larval resemblance, only adult resemblance is there. Coming to the phylogenetic affinities, close larval similarities between Ophiopluteus and Echinopluteus indicate convergent larval evolution among unrelated groups. So as we have seen, though brittle star, adult, and sea urchins, they don't have same external features. The larvae, they show lot of resemblance, which may be due to the convergent larval evolution, which is seen in the unrelated groups of animals which are included under the class Ophiuridia and Echinoidea. Similarly, major differences between the larvae of closely related forms like Echinoidea and Holothuroidea, that is adults we are comparing here, or adults of Astroidea and Ophiuridia, are due to divergent evolution. Therefore, to deduce phylogenetic affinities based on larval resemblances in echinoderms is not possible or inadmissible. So here we like to summarize that we have had sufficient information not only regarding the significance of this larvae, evolutionary significance or phylogenetic significance, we have also come across that in crinoids there are no larval forms, whereas in asteroids we come across two larval forms. Ophiurids also have two larval forms. Holothurids also have two larval forms. But in the echinoids, we have only one larval form. So coming to the end of the session, at the end, we have learned the structure and significance of echinoderm larvae. And these are some of the references for your future studies. Please write your feedback to zoology.bcu@gmail.com. Thank you.